This is The Jump Around with Jim Rutledge and Pablo Iglesias, streaming live on the ESPN Madison YouTube channel.
Welcome into the Jump Around 3.0. I am Jim Rutledge, live from the Everlight Solar studio. Good to be back. I was down in Deerfield Beach, Pompano Beach area. I was not able to track down Xavier Lucas. I did my best. But it did remind me as I had a phone conversation with former Badger cornerback Sojourn Shelton the other day, who's also from that area. And we got to talking about St. Thomas Aquinas, which had James White, Connor O'Neill, Des Southwood. That was a hot spot for Badger football for a long time. So hopefully the Badgers go back to those days where they were recruiting players who at a bare minimum had a cup of coffee in the NFL, whether it was Des, whether it was Shelton. Obviously, James White had a very successful NFL career. I am Jim Rutledge. It's good to be back. We're going to bring in our guest and co-host. We'll make that announcement here in a minute. But I wanted to address something that bothered me on social media. And I know I did this on Jim, Matt, and Molly about calling people pathetic and haters for getting on the Chiefs. If you're not rooting for the Chiefs, like my whole point was if you're not like a fan of the Broncos or the Raiders or such, you're kind of a loser if you're rooting against the Chiefs. Or obviously, if you're an Eagles fan, obviously root against the Chiefs. But otherwise, get over it. We have a chance to see history. Get over yourself. But even more so, and I think maybe everyone, and we'll bring in Pablo in a minute, but Ryan, before we do that, I think you can agree with me on this. If you are, whether it's the Xavier Lucas, which I feel like will be coming, the AJ Storr, dunking on him on social media for his bad games, honestly, you're a pathetic loser if you're doing that. Let it go. Be better than this. Don't be the pathetic school that can't let the one guy. This is college basketball and college sports going forward. So don't be the loser fan base that can't just let it go. Guys are going to leave. Chucky Hepburn's having a great year, and good for him. And I hope AJ Storr turns it around, and hope Kansas has a great run. Because why are you hating on him? You are honestly telling on yourself that you cannot understand that people are going to come and go with money. This is college basketball and college sports going forward. And I'm not going to hate on a player, and I'm not going to try to put up their stats or their bad stat line or laugh at them because they had a bad game. Honestly, that reflects so poorly on you and us as Badger fans. If you're doing that, that is truly pathetic loser behavior if you're out there trying to box score watch some guy who left your program. Get over yourself.
So are you saying this because the fans booed Connor O'Neill on Sunday when he came back?
I thought that was pathetic too, because you know what the players didn't do? They didn't boo him. They all loved the former Badgers. Loved
great
Connor.
Friends with him. Yeah,
yes,
of course.
Because this is a business now more than ever. I always thought, I didn't like how Jared Udoff left the program. That was pretty pathetic. But I still thought it was worse. The fans are getting on him for when he went to Iowa and he basically, short cliff notes of that, left the program by trying to have his girlfriend slide a note under the door of Bo Ryan saying, I'm going to transfer him. Bo's like, no. You at least got to tell me you're going to transfer him. Bo took a lot of heat for that. But at the same time, there was still some guys on the team that maybe they didn't like him, but fans going after Udoff is still pathetic. Let the kid go. He's 20 years old. If you want to critique his basketball play, have at it. But attacking someone personally or, basically wallowing in their misery is really just pig behavior.
It definitely is pig behavior because you're trying to, like you said, wallow in their misery and cover yourself in mud. But I do think that's what fans do sometimes, and that's why we're fans.
But that's sad. That's pathetic. It is pathetic, especially because the Badgers are good.
I think it's also depending on the situation with how certain players left or certain guys left. I could definitely see the Jared Udoff situation being if it was a truly dipping out, undercutting the team. I mean, basically, based off what we're operating under the assumption as with Xavier Lucas right now, if what happened is what we believe happened, where he tried to play both sides and get money from Wisconsin and Miami before leaving and ducking out to Miami, then I can see why Wisconsin fans would rightfully be upset about it and want to see him, not upset if he didn't do well. So a couple different
stories. In this case, be upset now. But when he starts playing for Miami, just let it go. Because this isn't going to be the first time it happened. It's not the first guy to do it.
No, definitely.
So I'm saying,
not.
I think Badger fans come across as small time and petty, and a fan base that doesn't get it because bigger schools are bigger schools are gonna have this happen to them all the time. You know what the Badgers are loaded with? A bunch of guys they stole from some other school.
True.
So we're all hypocrites here.
I think I will say it depends on the way they went out. If they try to do it in backdoor ways, whereas there are times where guys transfer.
So you're going to be rooting against Xavier Lucas at Miami?
I won't be rooting for him. I'll say that.
I will be indifferent to him.
Okay.
If he shows up in the national championship game and he like gets burned on a big play, and Badger fans are like, "Oh, that's great, fine." But if he's playing, let's say Miami is playing Florida State, and he misses a tackle. I'm sorry, you're a loser if you're tweeting about. Like,
I think if you're going out of your
tackle,
if you're going out of your way to like focus on it, yeah, that's a little small.
I thought that's what happened with AJ Storr. Like
that's definitely happening with AJ Storr.
And that's pathetic, and that's small. So like there are levels to this, but Connor Siege and booing him, get over yourself, folks.
I can't, but I want it to be like the Kohl Center is a place you got to come and you got to come correct, Jim.
Kohl Center is
all those old people going. Boo.
The Kohl Center being a tough place to play is the biggest fallacy anyone will tell you. It's only tough to play when like national TV is there and a big time team is there.
Well, and very much like you said with the Chiefs, when the refs are on your side, they had the Kohl Center refs.
So regardless, like the Connor thing, but to your point, Connor didn't leave. He had a nice freshman year.
It's a very different situation.
Something weird happened where he fell out of the rotation, lost his confidence, and he left.
I'd agree. Yeah,
so,
that's a very different situation.
Boo the coaching staff for the play, or just boo it. It just sucked that it happened.
Yeah,
it's just one of those things. Like it's just unfortunate, and this is what the portal's made for. Connor then had an opportunity to go try to be somewhat more successful somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, because he kind of lost his spot on the roster with Max Klesman kind of taking that role. So, no, it made sense for everyone involved. But at the same time, I don't mind fans being fans sometimes.
Also, I saw a little meme of like Klesman and Connor Siege talking, and there was like
yes. What are they saying to each other?
Yeah, we're the same person. That's what they were saying to each other. So, like,
very much true.
If I had left, I'd be booed too, and you'd have my success.
Yeah, Max Klesman is just 2 years older.
Yeah, Connor Klesman, whatever. Again, Klesman transferred in from somewhere else. So, if you're accepting transfers into your team, then maybe on your players leaving your team.
He transferred in from somewhere else?
Klesman was
Klesman was, yes. So, he was a Wake Forest guy.
Yeah. So.
No, Wofford, actually. Excuse me.
Yeah, Wake Forest.
I was the wrong W.
I'm sorry.
Wow. Yeah. God.
In my head, I'm like, Wake Forest?
I think Wofford's in North Carolina, though. That's why I got that confused.
Okay.
That's my excuse.
The only place for W schools is basically how the Max Klesman recruiting
goes. Good choice.
All right, so we're going to get to our guest and, new co-host. We kind of blew that on the social media, but we'll get to that in a minute. But let me tell you about Steinhafels, the Test Rest. You can test rest a beauty black mattress at Steinhafels for your chance to win a dream vacation to Hawaii. That's right. Test rest a beauty rest black mattress at Steinhafels for your chance to win a dream vacation to Hawaii. Queen Beauty Rest mattresses start at just $399. Add an adjustable base and save up to $900. Those adjustable bases are fantastic. The Queen Beauty Rest black mattress start for just $38 a month. That's like what? A trip for two to McDonald's when you use the Steinhafels 60-month financing. Plus, get up to $300 in Steinhafels cash. Don't overpay for a good night's sleep. Shop in-store or online at steinhafels.com. All right, let's get to our guest.
George! Honestly, Abe, it's 4:30 in the morning.
But Steinhafels President's Day sale starts today. Come on, man.
It's Steinhafels President's Day sale. Get up to a $300 airline gift card, plus our special 18-month financing.
By presidential proclamation, today shall be the best day ever.
All right. President's Day sale sounds pretty great. I might have to go over there. I just traveled. I could use some gift cards for travel going forward from our good friends at Steinhafels. All right. We are bringing in not just our guest for today, but my co-host going forward. You might know him from WKOW. You might know him from some of our stuff around ESPN Madison. But Pablo Iglesias is joining the Jump Around as my regular co-host. Let's welcome in Pablo.
Woo! Hey, happy to be here. Jim, this is crazy, too, because this was when I had started filling in at ESPN Madison. This was the Jump Around when it was on 100.5, when it was just you, and then Strofe was in the production room, too. Yep. This was the first show that I filled in on ESPN Madison, wow. And now here we are, full circle. It's crazy. It's crazy, like 3 years ago or something like that.
Yeah, completely full circle. And honestly, if we ran back, so this show, for those who really know, and I don't know how many people are watching on YouTube stream or listening back, know the true origins of the Jump Around. It started with me and Tom Lee, who worked for BadgerBlitz.com. He was a reporter there, and he was fantastic. So Tom and I started the podcast, and then it was someone else came through. Zack came and did the show with me for a little bit. Then I left the show, and it existed for a little bit. But obviously, Without me, it can only go so long. No. So anyways, the show died out without me, and it came back, and we had Lamar Soup Campbell as a co-host for a while. And in fact, this show originated from a show called The Badger Hour that we then took to a podcast called The Jump Around. But so it was kind of full circle for the show. So it's been around for a while. Really love doing basically a Badger dedicated show, Badger dedicated podcast. And Pablo, we're excited to have you. And what better time to join than Badger basketball, up to 16-4 now on the season. They worked Nebraska. The Badgers are a good basketball team. I don't think Nebraska is, but they still beat the snot out of them, and that's what good basketball teams do.
Yeah, and going to the conversation that you and Prime were having at the start of this too, it's why are we booing Connor Essegian? He was a fan favorite. It's a coexisting situation where it was great to see him come back. It was fun to see his return. He didn't light it up, or it wasn't like the battle. But John Blackwell had said too in media pressers leading up to it that's still his guy. They're still friends. They still support each other, and that's what it's all about. Hey, have a little bit of that fun back and forth banter. It's not like he was talking trash. He was excited to come back to Madison. He's always been a very positive guy, even in the negative situations that he had to. So it was fun to see that.
And in the AJ store, and I saw people trying to lump Chucky Hepburn and like, oh, Chucky and AJ were the problem last year. I'm sorry, you are maybe not even making the NIT if you don't have Chucky and AJ Store last year. So like, one, they were not the problem, and Chucky's doing very well at Louisville. So, like, just root for him. And, again, back to the store side of things. Even if you don't like how he left, he still was a key member of a team that would have done a lot worse without him last year. So, if you wanted the team to at least make the tournament, which they did last year, you needed AJ Store. If you enjoyed that season, then just thank AJ Store for that season, and then be happy that you have Tanjay and others transferring in, and they kind of stepped through, and they're making nice plays for the Badgers right now. So, to the Badger basketball program, Tanjay was he shot well, 5 of 11. Blackwell, obviously, those are the two players that really push this team going forward. It is unique now where the Badgers are kind of old school, built on bigs shooting threes. That's not really as much right now. They are more of a guard and perimeter for this season base team. And I'm curious what that'll be around tournament time. I'll be 100% honest. This team, I am at arm's length until the tournament, because for me as a fan, the thing I care about always for Badger basketball or college basketball in general is, what does my team do in the NCAA tournament? And so for me, this is all neat. And I hope they continue to do well, and I hope they continue to play like Ken Pomeroy basically has them in upper echelon as far as efficiency for defense and offense, and that's all fine and dandy. But let's see what happens in March. But I am enjoying this team playing good basketball.
I was thinking about this morning, and you always want your team to be at the top. You want them to be in the conference. And I always still feel like the Big Ten Conference, even with the additions, however you feel, the Big Ten Conference is always a force to be reckoned with in the NCAA March Madness tournament. But there's always those, they don't make it out, or hardly any teams. There's a lot of teams that get bids, but hardly any of them make it out of that first weekend. I almost like the fact that Wisconsin is like 5th, 6th best, because in my strange mind right now, maybe that's not a bad sign. Maybe that means that, hey, people are sleeping on them a little bit. They're looking at the top dogs in the Big Ten, and this is the opportunity. I might be speaking a little too far, but we know March is right around the corner. Who the heck knows? If we could see Wisconsin in the second weekend of March Madness, not to get too far ahead of it, I don't think it's far-fetched. I don't think it's far-fetched. There's obviously, we talked about this too last week, the defensive deficiencies. This is not I'll steal a line from what I heard in the Big Ten broadcast network, the Big Ten broadcast from Sunday's game. Is it's not your father's Wisconsin. It's not even your brother's Wisconsin Badgers. This team is vastly different, but I am cautiously optimistic to see what they're looking like in March. That this is going to be a fun team to watch. And
this is why I hate stats, though, because John Rothstein tweeted out efficiency of the 14-15 Final Four teams for the Badgers, and then this year's efficiency. If Bo Ryan ran the offensive ball that Greg Gard's running, the Badgers are blowing them out of the water. Like, that Badger basketball team is light years in front of it, just for the simple fact they had 2 first-round draft picks on that team, plus other pros. Mm-hmm. I don't know if there's a pro on this team, and that still matters in March in college basketball. And then pessimistic, Klesmit and Kroll have shown me they're not going to do anything in March. Like, they've shown that they're not those guys. Now, Blackwell, I will give he is not. This is his time to shine. And Tanjay. So those are my reasons for optimism. Is Blackwell and Tanjay and even Nolan Winter. Those are 3 guys that we don't know what they are in March, and so we can take the positive view of, like, they're going to continue what they're doing now, and they're going to even elevate more in March, and they're not going to be overwhelmed. Kroll and Klesmit, they've been part of teams that just don't do anything in March. And so right now their resume says we can't do it in March. Blackwell and Tanjay and Winter are 3 rotational players that I think we can say maybe they could lift their game up in March. So that's what I'm hoping for because it will get different in March. It's all about style of play. To your point about the Big Ten, the Badgers have had last year's team was good. They just faced a team that was more physical and they just beat them up. It was embarrassing. Like, and maybe that's my problem with this team is last year's team was good. They got punked and they just got ran out of the gym and they just cried about it. And so, like, I need to see this team not do that. And not saying that they will, but that's what happened last year. And I need to not see it happen this year. So I'm still carrying that sting because they got worked. I mean, it was close, I guess, maybe in the end, but really from the beginning, they took their lunch, and the Badgers just turned to the officials and say, hey, you took my lunch, and they just kept getting the lunch taken over and over again.
Yeah, there were some questionable calls at the start, but as the conversation goes, you don't want to play to be in that.
To how that game's being called.
Exactly.
The Badgers didn't go back and be aggressive against their opponent. They just sat there and said, well, these calls aren't going our way.
Yeah, I don't know if I necessarily learned a significant or I took away any different lessons from Sunday's win against Nebraska. I know, Prime, you and I were texting back and forth, too, when the 19-2 run happened, and we were just through the roof, and all of a sudden, it was like a 2-possession game all of a sudden?
Felt pretty good, right?
Yeah, we felt really good.
We got to 24-21.
Yeah, we felt really, really good about that. But, again, it shows the depth. I think the depth shined, but it does worry me because this team is a live and die by the three-pointer. Yep. And that's what basketball is, but the slight sense of optimism, if I could throw it in there, is that it's not just you're not watching a pickup game at the Y where okay, you get the rebound and somebody chucks up a three. They're good about ball movement. I mean, really, that's any college basketball team though too, is what you hope for at least. But they're good about ball movement. They're finding the right guys at least. But again, that's what you live and die by it in March. You get it, that's what so many mid-majors, why they succeed is because they get hot from three or there's somebody who is just untouchable. So the Badgers could either have a deep run because they're hitting the right shots, or they could have a cold day. Not to get too far into March, but that's
to me that's all. I'm sorry, that's all that really matters. Look, great, the Badgers finished 4th or 5th in the Big Ten. Neat, that's fine. That's whatever. I want to see what happens in March. Now, Blackwell and Tanjay, in addition to the ability to shoot the three, they can put the ball on the floor because that's something the Badgers and they had a little bit with Storr, but Storr by the end of the year his shot was just not falling, but. That's what they need, players like that. And Chucky could do it a little bit. Again, Klesmit and Kroll have to prove to me they can. And for Tanjay, Blackwell, and Winter, I want to prove, for them, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt that they can do it in March. The other two, Klesmit and Kroll, I got to see them actually do it in March because more often than not, I've seen them not do it in March. So, but Tanjay, Blackwell, and Winter, guys who didn't have a lot of minutes or weren't on the team last year, those are my reasons for optimism. And to be honest, I think Greg Gard is a good coach. I think this is when we get to March and we face truly teams in a tight setting where games are intensities cranked up. I don't think the talent's there for Wisconsin, but I hope I'm wrong. But I think the coaching's there for Wisconsin. I think Greg Gard's a very good coach. I just think that I'm dubious based off past performance for Greg Gard and the Badger basketball program for years now. We've been how many times we can get burned? Who was Johnny Davis? We're gonna make a run. Nope. AJ Storr gonna make a run. Nope. We're gonna make the NIT. So just I'm enjoying the ride. But I am keeping this team at arm's length. I am not jumping on any sort of bandwagon because I don't want to get my heart broken again. Now, again,
I will say, to get a little too far into March, I am starting to see some bracketology. Having the Badgers as a 4th seed, 5th seed, one of those brackets, by the way. Had them facing up against Bradley Braves in the first round.
Okay,
as a 13 seed. What do we think about that? As one of the new co-hosts of the Jump Around, Pablo Iglesias, a proud Bradley alum. Who are you rooting for in that game?
Man, I gotta go with my alma mater at this one. I'm sorry, I have to. We weren't dancing since I think I covered them actually when I was in Peoria too. The last time that they were dancing was 2019, man, and we were up against Michigan State. I have to root for my roots, man. I have to.
If that game actually
it'll be a
happens,
fun game.
If that game happens, can we get Pablo Iglesias and Jesse Nelson live from the stands doing a watch along with the game?
This actually happened. Yes, I would love that. And this also happened.
Jump around on the road
at the NIT, and man, I felt like I was on cloud 9 when my Bradley Braves were here in Madison, and that's when Steven Crowell decided to just become, I don't know, like Larry Bird or something like that. And I think he tied the record for most three-pointers either in a game or he tied Frank Kaminsky's record for most three-pointers made in that game. And that just broke my heart watching
Well,
that.
there you go. Now we have confidence again. If we play
Hang
Bradley,
on.
Steven Crowell's going to turn into Larry Bird. That's all we need, Jim.
There you go.
You heard it.
Yeah, so I'm more in a wait-and-see mode. But I do think Greg Gard's a good coach, and I think this is a good team. I just don't know how good. And seeding will matter. Who do they play? Like this team, going back to the Rothstein, I get why you put the information out there. We weren't worried about seeding for those teams. Like those teams were legitimately top 5 in the country teams. I think the Badgers are top 4 or 5 in the Big Ten, and that makes them a top 25 team. So like the Badgers to me are a top 25 team, but you're a top 25 team that goes into the tournament and you are dependent on how games are called and your opponent. It's very much a crapshoot what's going to happen. Those teams with Bo Ryan that apparently this team is more efficient than, I'm sorry, would run this team off the gym, like off the court. But that's a credit to those teams. Like let's just not discount how amazing player of the year and Kaminsky and then Decker, obviously no slouch and obviously a ton of other great players on those teams. But those teams were elite, premier. I mean, they got as far as they got, not on luck because they did it 2 times in a row. Like, just want to give that team their flowers. But we'll have to wait and see what happens. The Badgers got Maryland coming up. This will be a good test for them at Maryland. I think Maryland's right behind the Badgers in the standings. I personally think Michigan, the teams in front of them, Michigan, Michigan State, Purdue, who else is in front of? Is that it? Those 3 teams? The Badgers are 4th, yeah.
Yeah, those 3.
That's kind of how I view the conference. So we'll have to wait and see. Again, I don't know what any of those other teams are going to do in the tournament. I guess I'd bet on Michigan State because Izzo's done it. Maybe Michigan because May's done it at FAU. Obviously Purdue, I don't know, maybe.
You doubt Purdue? They were just in the national championship.
They had like the largest human being ever to play basketball.
Don't they have like 4 more of those guys though?
True.
It's
true.
Purdue.
Yeah, I guess I should give Purdue benefit of the doubt. Just for more often than not, they were the team that failed. So are they Virginia? Like Tony Bennett had the 1 year?
Sure, but I mean, at least they're basically in the Final Four, Elite 8 every year.
All right.
I mean, if Wisconsin was at that level, I think we'd all feel much
that's where
different.
Wisconsin used to be. Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
we wish we were there right now.
Absolutely.
Truly.
Yes. All right. I want to get to the football side of things a little bit. Shout out to Leo Chenal, Zack Baun playing in the Super Bowl with the Chiefs and the Eagles, respectively. And I'll ask this question to you, Pablo. Like, who's the next Badger to make an impact in the NFL? And I should say it like this: a Luke Fickell Badger.
Luke Fickell
So
Badger.
Hunter Wohler can't be the pick. And then Jack Nelson, offensive lineman. I mean, those are probably the 2 draftable guys off the top of my head this year. Obviously,
Well, I guess technically Wooler isn't a Fickell guy.
that's what I'm saying. So you
anyway.
can't count. Yeah, so you can't count him, and you can't count obviously Braylon Allen. And he had a nice rookie season. So we're looking for obviously younger side of players things. And Prime, you can chime in as well. And if Riley Yauk is in the Everlight Solar studio as well, if you got a name to shout out, you can because it's going to be hard. Like that's the thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's also because he hasn't been around long enough to really develop many of his guys yet, too. Unless you include transfers.
Yeah, I'll include transfers. Like, that's his guy because he at least brought him in.
Transfers this year, I mean...
It doesn't have to be a transfer, like, who came in this year. The tight end might be
If you're trying to bet on who would make an impact in the NFL, he would make the most sense because he might be on draft boards next year.
Yes.
Tanner Koziol.
Yeah.
Otherwise, on today's roster...
I feel like Tanner's a good choice. Yeah. Also his birthday today, fun fact.
There you go. That's why we got Pablo in here.
Really?
Bringing in.
Got the newscaster news.
Yeah, we
that was such a
Wow.
newscaster note there.
We should have geared the show around that, honestly. Yeah.
Happy birthday. No, I was kidding.
Do we even know how to say his last name? Anyways, Koziol. Anyways.
Koziol.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We'll get there.
I'm not going to lie. I'm sifting through the roster right now just to figure it out. I'm sure there's somebody, but it is hard. It is hard to figure out who is going to be that guy.
Riley Yauk back here in the studio didn't whisper this in my ear, but I know he's thinking this. Christian Allegro is a young up-and-coming linebacker. I could see someone from the linebacker unit making an impact in the NFL one day. I don't know if it's him per se, but that would make sense given what Fickell's defense is going to be geared around.
And we're going to leave the offensive line out of it because you have to be like Joe Thomas to make that list, which means you're 5-6 years out. I'll give you one of a longer shot one. Not a long shot, just further out. I'm very bullish, and I'll just start the bandwagon now on Darian Dupree.
I was just about to say, I was going to be full homer.
Yeah.
Because he's coming from my high school, too.
Okay, even better.
Yeah.
Like, Dupree is a guy that I think has the potential to be the next great Badgers back. And outdo, I'll say this, I think Dupree could have a better career than Braylon Allen.
I think so. I feel like he is a lot more versatile. Also, shout out, my dad just texted me too, suggesting Darian Dupree.
Okay, there you
so
go.
we got to give a shout out to the Mount Carmel Caravan and where they're building. So
and, I do like Dylan Jones as well, the other running back. Like, obviously the Badgers do too, because as of now, there's not a lot of other juice in the backfield. Yakameli, Aker, like.
Yakameli, Aker. Ituka is one of the other guy in that running back class, along with Jones and Dupree. I mean, I think they have high hopes for all three, but Jones and Dupree being the two primary ones.
But this staff is showing, like, if they don't believe in you, they're going to recruit over you. They didn't do that.
I mean, that's college football. Like you
True.
mentioned with basketball, like that's just the nature of the beast.
So Dupree could be a name. Maybe Tretch?
So Riley Yuck back here, I did ask him what his picks would be. He said maybe either Vinny Anthony or Tretch.
Oh, Vinny Anthony's a good one.
If they made an impact probably in the NFL as like a returner or someone on special teams, wide receiver wise, it'd be really impressive if they made it just based off their wide receiver skill to the NFL. I think Vinny's been a great deep threat, but he's done it for half a season. I think he showed off really well.
He's
for
only
the
a
Badgers.
junior, so in theory he had 2 more years to prove
He's got
more.
time for sure. He and Tretch both do, but they're
The
both on the
size,
side. Yeah,
yeah.
the size. That's the thing.
And I don't know, like, Vinny is very fast. I love the V8 nickname. I don't know if he's NFL. I just don't know. I'm not saying he's
V8.
not,
I love
V8's
it.
great.
but I just don't, like, is he a 4.4 guy?
He's probably close to. I'd be.
If he's
I'd
under
imagine he's
4.5, I
4.5.
think he's got a chance to make a run here, to have a good season. People understand the Badgers offense. If he comes out, 39 catches, 672, 4 touchdowns, that's what we did last year. He bumps that to 55 and near 1,000 and 8 or 9 touchdowns. He's going to be in the conversation.
Sure.
Because I'm trying to think of, like, Quintez Cephas. What did he do here? And he was drafted.
He had a great final season here with the Badgers.
And he he kind of ruined his own career for the betting stuff, but he could still be playing otherwise.
Yeah, he would still be on like a practice squad somewhere. I wouldn't be surprised if he is still now around the NFL. He's probably he's definitely the last receiver that I can think of for the Badgers who ever made that kind of impact. Aberdarius, maybe Nick Toon, similar wise. Like, I don't know if Vinny Anthony or Tretch could live up to those standards.
So
for the
Quintez
Badgers.
is only an inch taller. So
he was a super physical receiver too. He had a lot. I mean, he kind of had that Anquan Bolden style of play.
true, but Vinny Anthony, I think, has the potential.
Yeah.
He looks on the field. He looked fast no matter who they were playing.
Yes.
Including Penn State and Oregon. So
USC too.
Yeah,
Burned them
USC.
up.
Yeah, so he looks like a guy that could be. And the receivers, it's like, look, they could fall in the 5th round and still be useful. But I think Vinny Anthony, Tretch, smaller, he's really gonna have to figure out what he's gonna do. I like the tight end Tanner Kozil and Dupree.
Given what Grimes' offense is going to be, too. I mean, I know, Pablo, you talked about this on last week's show, about the focus on offensive line play and like true, tough, nasty, and disciplined, I think. That's their TND. That's their acronym now. Mm-hmm. Hopefully this one
They
works
always
better
got
than,
something.
Hopefully it's better than team. But I think
fast.
that too. But I think like I think given what the offense is shifting to, some of those like core tenets of what Wisconsin football should be what they still emphasize going forward.
All right, just glancing at Kansas stats last year. Obviously, Daniels is a wild card because he was not very healthy and didn't have the best year. But so we'll leave aside the quarterback numbers because I feel like the Badgers will actually do better on that. But Devin Neal, 1,300 yards, almost 6 yards per carry, 16 touchdowns. The team as a whole ran for 2,545 yards. Their second back was obviously Daniel with the rushing at 447, and then Hinsaw at 376. All of them like near 5 or over 5 yards per carry. Wide receivers, they had Luke Grimm at 690 at 13.5, but then they had Skinner, more of a deep threat guy, 22.3 yards per catch. But this is a team at 2,500 yards passing, 2,500 yards rushing. Do I think with Billy Edwards, the Badgers could be a 3-2, 3,000 yards passing, 2,000 yards rushing? Yeah, which then there's stats there for Vinny Anthony.
I am actually looking on the defensive side, too. This is a guy who just came back after putting his name in the portal and coming back, is Jamel Howard. He's, what is he standing at here? Is 6'2", 320 defensive lineman. Again, it's a little bit of a stretch because we just don't know. We don't have a sample size. We don't know exactly how he's going to be. But with the way that, you have Kurt Neal moving on, you have a lot of these, you have a fresh defensive line room. Hopefully they can get back to what the Wisconsin gritty. I know we don't want to make it too much of a throwback. We want to move forward, but also that's what Wisconsin's defense has been known about is their pass rush, and they've been trying to get back to it. I wonder whether he gets a lot of playing time this year or he just develops a lot over spring. Jamel Howard, he might be somebody to watch because when he was recruited, he was 3-star, but he was a big 3-star. That was a big one again, coming out of a kid coming out of Chicago. Big boy. I think he's going to be fun. I would like to see, again, how he develops over spring. Maybe he's somebody to watch. I don't know much on the tape, but I would like to put him on the list.
And Luke Fickell, and I'm not going to be able to name them off the top of my head, but I think of Tyler Scott, I think of Desmond Ridder, and I think of Sauce Gardner. Just three guys, and I know there's more. Didn't the Packers have a tight end from Cincinnati? That was
Josiah
under
DeGuara.
So he put some players in the NFL from Cincinnati, so he can recruit NFL type players. Sauce Gardner, one of the best corners in all of football, and he was a top 10 pick, right? Wasn't he?
I believe he was top
definitely
5.
first
I thought he was
round.
fourth. I thought he was fourth. I just went top 10 just to be safe. It's off the top of my head, but yeah. So those are good players. I think Tyler Scott was third round. He's not anything in the NFL, but he at least turned. Like, that helps for recruiting. So I think there's reason for optimism that Fickell can add NFL talent, and it can be showcased in the Jeff Grimes offense there. All right. Otherwise, just looking around the Big Ten here, it is wild to me. One, Ohio State. What do they operate? You sent me this message, Ryan. They operated in a deficit. Was it $3.5 million deficit or something like that last year?
It was a $37 million.
$37 million. That's a big decimal point there. Yeah.
I believe I looked it up, actually. I was thinking about sending it to you guys today, but I didn't know if we'd get to the Ohio State portion of the show today. But yes, they actually spent a record $292.7 million during the previous fiscal year. Only brought in $254.9 million, which is apparently a decline of $24.6 million for Ohio State, which is surprising.
They'll get some money now.
They'll get some money now, but I mean, you kind of look at it. You mentioned, and we were going to talk about it because they just lost their offensive coordinator, their defensive coordinator, Jim Knowles, to our rival. Teams are going to be bidding year to year, and I think we might see some years where certain teams go all in on given seasons and have to kind of lay back and recuperate some funds. I mean, we all know Ohio State went all in this year.
They did. And you mentioned Jim Knowles going to Penn State, and I mean that matters. But Ohio State will find a good coordinator there. But look, every $3.1 million for an assistant is a lot of pay. I want to get to this little video from Barry Alvarez from Great Dane Huddle talking about with this team and kind of what we talked about with Grimes stepping in. And I feel like my understanding is that Grimes is having conversations with players, but also with alumni, saying that we're going to get back to Badger football. So he is putting his name on the line at Wisconsin. He's reaching out to important people saying, we're going to do what Wisconsin does, which is use the tight end. We're going to run the football to set up the pass. We will have explosive pass plays, but they're going to be based off the run. And we're going to have a lot of explosive run plays and get back to being running back U. Because, again, we've had conversations throughout the year on this show of who's the greatest running back of all time. And we haven't had a back in that conversation. Taylor was the last back of recency that's in that conversation. Braylon Allen's not in that conversation. It was Taylor's probably the most recent back in that conversation. And you go back to the White, and you go back to who else am I thinking of here? Melvin Gordon, those sort of backs, Monte Ball, even John Clay, like that era. And I think Dupree and Jones are going to get the opportunity to be those sorts of backs. Let's hear from let's hear from Barry Alvarez on the Great Dane Huddle.
I don't think we're that far away from being a very good team. Now, when I came in, we hadn't had a winning season for I don't know how many years. They didn't know how to win. We hadn't won a Big Ten game in a while. I mean, these guys are one season away from being in a bowl game forever. We had the record for consistent bowl game appearances. So he's not stepping into an empty roster. I mean, he's got players here. So he'll add his own players and his own flair and on all that type thing. But this program isn't rock bottom. This program's not in bad shape for someone just coming in.
I agree with him. We talked about it a little bit, Pablo, but the offensive line is there for this team to make an instant turnaround running the football. I think they have two and the recruiting stars are backing up, and stars aren't everything. But we saw from Dupree this year, he has the ability to be explosive. He had flash plays this year. Dylan Jones thinking a lot of opportunity. When he did get it, he did make some plays. Yakimelli seems like a steady Eddie. Like we have a guy there that can come through. So what I like, and I'm hearing about Grimes, and you can see it from his play. And this is what he said. When he had Zach Wilson, what did he do? He let it rip. He was throwing the ball around. He had that kind of talent. He said, you know what? We're gonna air it out. We're gonna throw way more than we normally do, than maybe I normally feel comfortable with. At Baylor and Kansas, I think he had a couple of top 5 rushing offenses, a couple times averaging, or I think on average over the last 4 or 5 years, averaged over 2,000 yards rushing as a team. And those are things that I like. And then using the tight end, and I've recruited to help that. But if Koziel's who we think he is, the offensive line was good. I think they wore down throughout the year, but I think this offensive line will be better for scheme, and I think they're very talented. Now you're going to run the football, and then you add in Billy Edwards, who I think can at least play some kind of be what we thought. If Billy Edwards is what Tanner Mordecai was 2 years ago, but healthy for a whole season, the Badgers are going to be in good shape. What is a good season? I don't know the wins. You need to get back to a bowl game. They win 7 and they don't embarrass themselves in the other games, because some of like the USC game, the way they lost it doesn't feel good. Alabama as well.
Even Penn State and Oregon too. You had those games.
Right. Yes.
You had those games, and you just forgot how to play in the fourth quarter all of a sudden. I don't know what happened.
If you get similar scores in some of those games, but it ends differently, you just basically you had 8 plays, you ran them, and you got points off, and then that was it. Like that's kind of what those games felt like. I think that will be gone. So I agree with Coach Alvarez there. There is talent there on offense and on defense, and I think with the recruiting that this team, they're not going to win 10 games. They're not going to be a top of the Big Ten team. They're not going to do what Indiana did. They don't have the schedule for it, and we can't give them the blind faith. But can this be a team that looks like the first respectable team since Paul's second to last year at Wisconsin? What was that 5 years ago?
It would be 2020 now, yeah. So, 4 seasons ago, really.
Was that the pandemic year then with Mertz?
That would have been the pandemic year, yes.
So that's not even... Man, it's been a long time since we watched
Well,
something
actually,
good.
no.
Yes.
2021, excuse me. That's the Las Vegas Bowl season. Oh, they went 9-3, Braylon Allen's freshman year.
If we could have the equivalent with this schedule to that season...
Equivalent, what would be the equivalent?
I think, honestly, 7 with no embarrassing losses. Like, if you only lose the big time games, like we'll look at the schedule later, but if you just lose the games, you're like, yeah, you're not going to win those. But you're now I'm getting too excited. You're telling me that Michigan was no like juggernaut, like
they weren't, but they beat Alabama, by the way.
They did. Wisconsin could have and probably should have beaten Oregon if they just could have Braden Locke not make boneheaded plays. And I'm not trying to rewrite history. The Badgers' record is what it is, but I'm not saying the Badgers would even beat Michigan. I'm just saying that like. Michigan is not the Oregon Ducks or Penn State or Alabama.
And Oregon just lost its quarterback, too. They lost a lot of people to the NFL.
So my point is, if they win the games when we run through the season, and we don't have to do it now, if they win the games that we feel like they should win, and then they lose all the others, and that gets them 7, okay. Honestly, going from missing a bowl to 7, as long as we feel like we know what the offense looked like the last time they won 7. It was gross. Like, so it can't be one of these sort of like we're inept and we're just lucking and backdooring our way into a few random wins. Like, we have to look good in those 7 wins and look good in the losses, and then we can feel like we're building something.
They got to play to what they preach, because in spring practices and in fall camp and everything, they always preach is, and I think this is a Mike Tressel thing too that he would even say, is that they want to be consistently good, not occasionally great. I know that's a coach talk thing, but that's what I feel like that the Badgers need to do. And we talked about last week, too, with Kenny Guyton as he moves on from the wide receivers to the quarterbacks. He always says in his room, never wants to use the word almost, because it's either you made the play or you didn't make the play. We saw as the season went on, too, Luke Fickell getting frustrated that the plays were not being made. Something's got to give at some point. Somebody's got to make the plays. Somebody's got to do something. And, time is ticking. It feels like.
All right, we're going to play the schedule game. We're going to play it many times.
We're doing it our way.
We're just going to do it right now. We're going to play the schedule game. I think I have the right one here.
I want to play college football after this now,
I know,
too.
right? So the Badgers, if I have the right season here,
Take my
I've been
dynasty.
known to bring it up. They start the season at home against Miami, Ohio.
Correct.
Dub?
Dub.
All right, W. Middle Tennessee State. W, right?
Yes.
Darn
2-0.
should be.
All right, Alabama.
should be.
That's a loss. That's a big
At
L.
Upset.
Alabama.
At
No.
Alabama. At
The
Alabama.
Tuscaloosa upset.
We're taking the L there. Maryland at Camp Randall. I'm giving us the W.
Billy Edwards
That's what we
revenge
need.
game.
That's
I would
what we
assume
need.
their head coach might even not be there anymore next year.
Okay.
It's getting NFL jobs.
Let's be pessimistic here then. So at Michigan, that's a loss. I guess we'll do this based off past history. Iowa, loss.
Where's that game?
It's at Camp Randall.
Recent years would say that Iowa should win that game.
Right. So we're just gonna.
So they're currently at 2-4.
No, the Badgers have 3 wins. We have Maryland,
Oh, we have Maryland. Yes.
Yeah.
So we're 3-3.
3-3. Ohio State, that's a loss. Then the Oregon Ducks.
Where's the Ohio State game again?
Camp Randall?
It's here.
It's at Wisconsin. They're losing most of their starters to the NFL. A lot of turnover at Ohio State.
It's still. It's.
I know it's Ohio
still
State. Don't get me
Ohio
wrong.
State,
Okay,
though.
Jeremiah
Here's how
Smith
we're
will
going
be
to do
on
it.
the field.
All right, because I have the Badgers right now, pessimistic. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 losses in a row. All right, let's go out of these 4. We'll say they get one of them. Michigan, Iowa, Ohio State, Oregon, they're going to get one. We don't know which one. We're just going to give them one out of those 4.
Michigan, Iowa, Ohio State, Oregon.
Yeah.
I'm calling upset at the big house.
But we don't even have to pick it. We're just going to give them one in there. So they got 4. What are they, 4-4 now if we did the math on that?
I believe they'd be 4-4. Yes,
All right. Washington at Camp Randall.
they should win that game.
All right, so that's 5. Indiana. I'm sorry, Indiana. That's in Bloomington, but I'm not going to believe in them.
I think there's more reason to believe in them than Wisconsin.
All right, either I'm picking them to beat Indiana or Illinois, whichever one you want. I'll go at Illinois Camp Randall.
Illinois is top 15
Illinois.
preseason.
Brett Bielema was a big fraud. He will fall back on earth. So we're going to go Illinois at Camp Randall.
If Wisconsin
He's
had
got
the
their.
season-
Well, I wouldn't say he's got their number. They got one. They both flip flops.
if Wisconsin had the season that Illinois had with Brett Bielema last year, we'd feel a lot different.
We would. I'm going to give them 6, though. 6. They're going to win one of those, either at Indiana or home Illinois.
And then that's the end of the season. And
no,
we
then they have
got-
Minnesota. So that gets them 7.
That gets them 7
Yeah.
at Minnesota.
Yeah.
Just get the axe, please.
I would
Please
love.
get the
I
axe
would
back.
love for them to, but I mean, are we saying that you're going to say that with 100% certainty right now?
I think realistically, what this line is what a pick 'em at the end of the year.
It's a good question. I don't really know what Minnesota looks like next year going into this offseason, but just based off past performance, Minnesota has to be considered a team that is above Wisconsin right now.
The Badgers beat them 2 years ago, right?
They beat them 2 years ago when they were missing their running back, and
We don't know what the Minnesota. They're coached by PJ Fleck.
True, but I mean, Illinois is coached by Brett Bielema, and they'd beat Wisconsin right now too.
It was Fickell's first season that they won
split
the
versus
axe.
Bielema too.
Yes. They split versus Bielema, but I think that's why you would say that. All right, I guess they'd split versus Illinois and Minnesota then.
I'm giving them 7 in regular. If they get 7 regular season wins with this schedule, that's a win.
I think it is, but I think it goes to show how difficult that's going to be.
Yes, but
It was a rough schedule.
we are, and this is where the difference is. We're basing it off the team we saw last year. If this is a team that Jeff Grimes is truly what he says he is, and we do believe fit with player personnel, because going back to Grimes, and I know we got to get out here, what I like about Jeff Grimes, when you hear about the best offensive coordinators, and I mentioned it earlier, they don't say this is the Jeff Grimes offense. They go, this is the offense we have for our roster. And Jeff Grimes, and I mentioned it earlier, at BYU, we got Zach Wilson, we're going to throw it. When we're at Kansas, we got Neal, we're going to run it. And we're at Baylor, we got the other running backs, we're going to run it. And so I think ideally he wants to run. And I think Billy Edwards, I'm just going to give him the expectation of a healthy Tanner Mordecai. And I think if we get that, plus Dupree, because let's not remember, we have not had, all due respect to our running backs, a good running back season. Maybe that's offensive line, maybe that's the play calling, whatever, in a while.
They've been fine, but yeah, they
Braylon
haven't
Allen
been.
and Ches Malusi got hurt. The Badgers running,
Isaac Arendo too. I mean,
Yeah.
it was great to see him come back and have the season that he did, and
Yeah.
with Louisville, and,
Yeah.
and now it's fun to watch him with the Niners. But yeah, it took a second.
So it's been a bit. So I think we can get back to having a good running game and complementary football. Like if Grimes calls the game the way we think we're going to call it, and the Badgers' running game can be respectable, which I think we can have reason to be acceptable for or excited about, these games, everything's going to look better. Defense is less tired during the game, less tired at the end of the year. The games are closer. How many times did Braden Locke go out and throw 3 passes and burn 4 seconds off the game clock? And so, and 10 years off our life with some of those throws he made. So, like, this is where the optimism can lie. The schedule is real, but we are all going. I don't know what the wins total is, but I feel optimistic the Badgers are going to pass the eye test at the end of the year.
I would also love to see Tanner Koziel make. I'm not saying from a draft standpoint. I don't know what he's going to look like on tape. I'd love to see him in spring practices, but maybe a Jake Ferguson-esque type of is this? Yeah. Or could we say that Tanner Koziel is probably, in terms of what we've seen recent, like could we say like he's kind of a Jake Ferguson-esque? He could be a good go-to guy in the red zone. He could be funny. He could be that solid option. I don't know if we really had a lot of guys.
If you cut his numbers in half, coming and just say he'll do half of what he did, we're going to be in good shape.
Yes.
And so we'll have to wait and see on that. One bit of serious news here. And Wisconsin athletics, there's been allegations made against the women's basketball team. And I'm just going to read their statement from UW Athletics, mainly because we don't have the reporting on it. So we're just going to give the comment from UW Athletics, and we'll give a little background on it if you want to in a second here, Pablo. But statement from UW Athletic: we are aware of comments shared online by former Badger student athlete Tessa Towers, and will be looking into this matter. We care deeply about the physical and mental well-being of all student athletes on our teams during and after their time on campus. While we would like to share additional context around Teresa's comments, federal privacy law prohibits us from publicly addressing the health-related claims made on Tessa's social media account. And so, from my purpose, I hope Tessa's doing well, is my major concern out of this whole thing. And then I hope that the truth, whatever, I honestly have no indication at all what the truth is. I hope the truth is found out only because something needs to be resolved and Wisconsin needs to fix a problem, or Tessa can continue to get more help. Either way, the truth will help Tessa and UW, and that's what I'm hoping for. So maybe UW needs to be better. Maybe there's not full transparency. I don't know any of those things, but I really hope that Tessa is continuing to get better if she is struggling with mental health issues, and I hope Wisconsin is continuing to examine how student athletes are receiving their not necessarily their treatment, but obviously there's a perception from Tessa that maybe Wisconsin did not care as much as, and it could be real, but that perception is concerning for Wisconsin. They need to address it.
Yeah, I agree with everything you're saying too. The best thing that I'm hoping for in this is at peace and comfort in this situation. It's hard, it's heavy. We're still trying to figure out as we go what is happening, if we are even going to get even any more answers on this situation. But just like what you said, hopefully Tessa is in a better place, and whether it's through sharing this or just in general, we're just hoping for as much peace and comfort in everybody involved in this situation, that there's as much peace and comfort in trying to figure out how to handle this the right way moving forward.
All right, thank you, Pablo. And I want to tell everyone about some exciting stuff coming up today. If you can make it to North and South Seafood Smokehouse in Verona, me, alongside John Audius from, obviously, Badger Volleyball, we're going to be doing Jim, Matt, and Molly live from North and South 4 to 6. But then John's going to lead a Q&A with Kelly Sheffield, Sarah Franklin, and I've been told 2 other current Badger Volleyball players are showing up there as well. You can stick around for post-show photos, autographs, one-on-ones, Q&As, etc. Again, that's at North and South Seafood and Smokehouse in Verona tonight. The event will start at 6. John and I will be on air 4 to 6, and then John will do the Q&A with Coach Sheffield and Sarah Franklin, along with some current Badger Volleyball players from 4 to 6. 6 to 7. So make sure to get out there and enjoy that. This has been the Jump Around 3.0.